Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in her command chair on the bridge of the Coalition patrol ship Nexus Prime. She was bored. The same empty space, the same quiet stars, the same nothing for weeks now. Her ship was patrolling the edge of the void sector, a place where no one ever went because nothing ever happened there. The void sector was a dead zone in space. Ships that went too deep into it never came back. Their engines would fail, their computers would stop working, and they would drift, forever in the darkness. The Coalition had marked it as forbidden territory 200 years ago, after losing too many exploration ships. Elena was drinking her morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across the bridge. Her crew jumped into action, checking their screens and instruments. "Captain, we have a massive energy reading coming from the void sector," called out Lieutenant Jake Morrison from his station. His voice was shaking a little. Jake had been with Elena for 3 years, and she had never heard him sound scared before. Elena put down her coffee cup and leaned forward. "Show me what you found." The main screen lit up with sensor data. A huge energy signature was moving through space, coming from deep inside the Forbidden Zone. It was bigger than anything Elena had ever seen. Bigger than the Coalition's largest warships. Bigger than their space stations. It was the size of a small moon. "What could make an energy reading that big?" asked Elena. Jake was typing fast on his computer, trying to get more information. "I don't know, Captain. The computer says it's a ship, but that's impossible. Nothing that big could fly through space." Elena stood up and walked to Jake's station. She looked at the numbers on his screen. The energy readings were off the charts. Whatever was out there had more power than her entire fleet put together. "How far away is it?" she asked. "About 6 hours at current speed," Jake replied. "But Captain, it's coming our way fast." Elena felt a chill run down her back. Nothing came out of the void sector. Ever. In all the years the Coalition had been watching that empty space, not even a small rock had drifted out of it. "Send a message to Coalition Command," Elena ordered. "Tell them we have an unknown contact, coming from the Forbidden Zone. Request immediate backup." Her communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, nodded and started sending the message. But before she could finish, something impossible happened. The space in front of them began to shimmer like water. Reality seemed to bend and twist. Then, with a flash of blue light, the largest ship Elena had ever seen appeared right in front of them. The ship was massive beyond belief. It stretched for miles in every direction. Its hull was dark gray metal, covered in scars and burn marks from countless battles. Strange lights danced across its surface, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. Along its sides, Elena could see weapon systems that she didn't recognize. They looked nothing like Coalition technology. "Captain," Jake whispered, "I'm reading the ship's identification codes. This is impossible." Elena turned to look at him. "What does it say?" Jake's face was white with shock. "It says this is the UHS Defiance. But Captain, that ship was lost 300 years ago." Elena knew that name. Every Coalition officer knew that name. The UHS Defiance was a human ship that had disappeared during humanity's first attempt to explore beyond Coalition space. It had been the pride of the human fleet, carrying the best and brightest of their people into the unknown. When it vanished, everyone assumed it had been destroyed. "That's not possible," Elena said. "The Defiance has been gone for centuries. Everyone on board would be dead by now." But even as she said it, her sensors were confirming what Jake had found. The ship's identification codes matched perfectly. This was indeed the lost human supercarrier. Suddenly, their communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in clear, perfect Coalition standard language, but with an accent that sounded old and formal. "Coalition vessel, this is Admiral Marcus Stone of the United Human Ship Defiance. We have returned from our mission and request immediate contact with Earth Command." Elena and her crew stared at each other in shock. The voice was calm and professional, as if the speaker was asking for something as simple as landing permission. At a spaceport, Elena took a deep breath and activated her microphone. "UHS Defiance, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Coalition patrol ship Nexus Prime. Admiral Stone, according to our records, your ship has been missing for 300 years. How is this possible?" There was a pause before the Admiral replied. Captain Rodriguez, time works differently where we have been. We have much to discuss, but not over open channels. May we request permission to send a shuttle to your ship? Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was waiting for her decision. She knew she should wait for backup from Coalition Command. She knew she should follow protocol and keep her distance until more ships arrived. But something in the Admiral's voice made her trust him. Permission granted, Admiral Stone. You may send your shuttle. Within minutes, a small craft detached from the massive supercarrier. Elena watched it approach through her view screen. The shuttle was sleek and beautiful, but like the main ship, it was covered in battle scars. As it came closer, she could see that it was using technology she didn't understand. It moved through space without any visible engines, as quiet as a ghost. The shuttle docked with her ship, and Elena went to the airlock to meet their visitors. When the door opened, 3 people stepped out. They were human, but something about them was different. They moved with the confidence of people who had seen things beyond imagination. Their uniforms were clean and pressed, but Elena could see the weight of years in their eyes. The man in front was clearly Admiral Stone. He was tall and strong with gray hair and kind eyes. But those eyes held secrets that Elena could not even begin to guess. Captain Rodriguez, he said with a smile. Thank you for seeing us. We have been away for a very long time, and we have much to tell you about what lies beyond the edge of known space. Elena shook his hand and led them to her conference room. As they walked through her ship, she noticed that the Admiral and his people seemed to be studying everything around them, as if they had never seen a Coalition ship before. Admiral, Elena said as they sat down, I have to ask again. How is it possible that you and your crew are still alive after 300 years? Admiral Stone looked at her with those ancient eyes. Captain, we have been fighting a war that you don't even know exists. A war for the survival of every living thing in this galaxy. And now I'm afraid that war is coming home. The emergency meeting began 2 hours after Captain Rodriguez sent her report to Coalition Command. In a secure room on the Coalition's main space station, representatives from 12 different alien species gathered around a circular table. The holographic displays showed images of the massive human ship that had appeared from nowhere. Admiral Thex of the Zephyrian Navy was the first to speak. His blue skin was darker than usual, which meant he was worried. This is impossible, he said, his voice making clicking sounds that the translator turned into words. Human technology from 300 years ago could not survive in the void sector. Nothing can survive there. The Corlin representative, a tall being with 4 arms, agreed. Our best ships fail within hours of entering that region. Their computers stop working, their engines shut down, everything dies. How could an old human ship not only survive but come back after 3 centuries? Fleet Commander Lisa Park, the human representative at the table, felt all eyes turn to her. She was young for such an important job, but humans aged faster than most species, so they had to take leadership roles early in life. I don't have answers, she admitted. This is as much a surprise to us as it is to you. The meeting went on, for hours. Some species wanted to treat the returned ship as a threat. Others thought it might be some kind of trick. But everyone agreed on one thing. They needed to know more. In the end, they chose Captain Park to lead the first contact team. She was human like the crew of the mysterious ship, and she had experience dealing with unusual situations. Her job was to go to the supercarrier and find out what had really happened. Captain Park took a diplomatic shuttle to meet the Defiance. As her small ship got closer to the massive vessel, she began to understand just how big it really was. Her entire shuttle could have fit inside one of its weapon turrets. The ship was covered in armor that looked like it had been through countless battles. There were burns and scratches everywhere, but somehow the ship still looked beautiful and deadly. This is incredible, said Lieutenant Danny Walsh, her pilot. Look at those energy readings. This ship has more power than our entire home fleet. Captain Park nodded. She was looking at the weapon systems that lined the supercarrier's hull. They were unlike anything in the Coalition's database. Those aren't just weapons, she said quietly. Those are things we don't even have names for. The shuttle docked with the Defiance in a bay that was bigger than most Coalition ships. As Park and her team stepped out, they were met by a group of humans in military uniforms. The uniforms looked old-fashioned but well-made, and every person wearing them moved like a trained soldier. Admiral Stone was waiting for them. Park had seen his picture in the history books, but seeing him in person was strange. He should have been dead for centuries, but he looked like a man in his 50s. His hair was gray and his face showed lines of stress, but his eyes were bright and alert. "Captain Park," he said, stepping forward to shake her hand. "It's good to see another human face. It's been a long time since we've been home." Park shook his hand and tried to hide her confusion. "Admiral Stone, I have to ask the obvious question. According to every record we have, you and your crew should have died 300 years ago. How are you still alive?" The Admiral smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Time is not the same everywhere, Captain. Where we have been, a day can last a year, or a year can pass in an hour. We have been fighting for what feels like a lifetime, but in normal space, centuries have passed." He led them through the ship's corridors. Captain Park was amazed by what she saw. The technology was far beyond anything the Coalition had. The walls seemed to glow with their own light, and she could hear the quiet hum of machines that she couldn't identify. Everything was clean and organized, but she could see signs of repair work everywhere. "Admiral," she said as they walked, "what kind of mission were you on that kept you away for so long?" Admiral Stone stopped walking and turned to face her. "Captain, what I'm about to tell you will be hard to believe. But I need you to listen carefully because the fate of every living thing in this galaxy depends on what we do next." They entered a large meeting room where other members of the Defiance's crew were waiting. Captain Park recognized some of the faces from old photographs, but like the Admiral, they all looked much younger than they should have. 18 months into our mission, Admiral Stone began, we encountered something that changed everything. We found life beyond the edge of the galaxy, but it wasn't the kind of life we hoped to find. Commander Alex Turner, a woman with short black hair and serious eyes, stepped forward. "We call them the Devourers," she said. "They are unlike anything you have ever imagined. They consume entire solar systems, turning planets and stars into energy that they use to grow stronger and spread further." Captain Park felt her blood turn cold. "How many of them are there?" "Millions," replied Dr. Helen Price, an older woman who wore the uniform of a science officer. "Maybe billions. They move through space like a plague, destroying everything in their path. When we first found them, they were heading toward the outer edge of Coalition space." Admiral Stone activated a holographic display that showed a map of the galaxy. "We tried to come home immediately to warn everyone, but they detected our ship. They began following us, trying to learn the location of inhabited worlds." The map showed the path the Defiance had taken, moving away from Coalition space and deeper into the empty regions beyond the galaxy's edge. "So we made a decision," the Admiral continued. "We couldn't lead them back to our homes. We couldn't let them find Earth or any of the Coalition worlds. So we turned around and went back to face them." Commander Turner pointed to areas on the town map marked in red. "We've been fighting them ever since. For 300 years we have held the line at the edge of the galaxy. We've destroyed thousands of their ships, but they keep coming." Captain Park stared at the display in shock. "You've been fighting alone for 3 centuries?" "Not alone," said Admiral Stone. "After we sent warning messages back to Earth, they sent reinforcements. The entire human deep space fleet came to help us. 17 supercarriers and all their support ships. We've been humanity's secret army, protecting the galaxy from a threat that nobody else knows about." Dr. Price brought up another display, this one showing strange energy patterns and technical data that Park couldn't understand. "We've learned to use time itself as a weapon," she explained. "We can slow down time around our ships during battle, making us faster than our enemies. We can speed up time to repair damage quickly. These abilities have kept us alive, but they've also kept us separated from the normal flow of time." "But something has changed," Admiral Stone said, his voice becoming more serious. "The Devourers have found a way to break through our defenses. They've discovered new technology that makes them stronger than ever before. For the first time in 300 years, we're losing the war." Captain Park felt the weight of what she was hearing. Are you saying they're coming here? To Coalition? Space? They're already on their way, Commander Turner replied. Our long-range scouts have detected advanced forces moving toward the outer colonies. We estimate they'll arrive within days. Admiral Stone looked directly at Captain Park. That's why we've returned. We need to warn the Coalition and prepare for a battle unlike anything they've ever faced. The enemy that's coming doesn't just want to conquer your worlds. They want to consume them completely, leaving nothing behind but empty space. The room was quiet for a long moment. Captain Park tried to process everything she had heard. A secret. War lasting 3 centuries. An enemy that could destroy entire solar systems. And now that enemy was coming to attack everything she knew and loved. What do you need from us? She asked finally. Admiral Stone smiled, and this time, it wasn't sad. We need the Coalition to trust us. We need them to follow our lead in the coming battle. And most importantly, we need them to understand that humanity has been protecting this galaxy for longer than most species have had spaceflight. Captain Park nodded slowly. I'll make sure they understand, Admiral. But I have one more question. After fighting alone for so long, why are you helping us? You could have stayed hidden and let the Coalition face this threat on their own. The Admiral's expression became firm and determined. Because that's not who we are, Captain. Humans don't abandon their friends when trouble comes. We stand and fight, no matter what the odds. That's what we've been doing for 300 years, and that's what we'll keep doing until this threat is ended. The high-security briefing chamber on Coalition Central Station had never seen a meeting like this one. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy sat around the massive table, their faces showing fear and disbelief. Admiral Stone stood at the center of the room, his weathered hands moving over the holographic controls that displayed images no one wanted to believe. This is what we have been fighting, Stone said quietly. The display showed a ship that looked like it was made of black metal and living tissue. It moved through space like a giant snake, twisting and turning in ways that hurt to watch. The Devourers are not like us. They are not even alive in the way we understand life. Fleet Admiral Vex of the Coalition military leaned forward in his chair. His large insect-like eyes studied the display carefully. How big are these ships? Commander Alex Turner stepped up to answer. The small ones are about the size of your largest battleships. The big ones are larger than space stations. But size isn't what makes them dangerous. She changed the display to show a video recording from a battle. The Coalition representatives watched in horror as a Devourer ship approached a small planet. Instead of bombing it or landing troops, the ship simply opened its front section like a giant mouth. A beam of energy shot out, and the planet began to dissolve, turning into streams of matter that flowed into the alien vessel. They eat everything, Turner explained. Planets, stars, ships, people. They turn it all into energy that makes them stronger. A Devourer ship that eats a planet becomes 2 ships. 2 ships become 4. They multiply by consuming everything in their path. The Corlan representative made a sound that the translator couldn't convert to words. His forearms were shaking. How many worlds have they destroyed? Dr. Helen Price brought up a star chart that showed huge empty areas where star systems used to be. In the regions we've been fighting them, they have consumed over 2,000 solar systems, billions of planets, trillions of lives. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the map, trying to understand the scale of destruction they were seeing. Prime Minister Chen of the Earth government was the first to speak. Admiral Stone, how have you been able to fight something like this? Stone activated another display, this one showing the human fleet in action. We learned to think differently about warfare. Traditional tactics don't work against an enemy that gets stronger every time it wins a battle. So we developed new strategies. The video showed human ships moving in patterns that seemed impossible. They appeared to teleport from one location to another, striking at Devourer vessels and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Time manipulation, explained Dr. Price. We discovered that space and time can be twisted and shaped like any other tool. We can make our ships move faster than light without using traditional engines. We can slow down time around enemy vessels, making them sitting targets. We can even create zones where time moves backward, undoing damage to our ships. Admiral Keth of the Martian Defense Force raised a tentacle in question. But how did you learn to do these things? Such technology should take centuries to develop. Commander Turner's expression became dark. We didn't have centuries. We had to learn fast or die. Every battle taught us something new. Every ship we lost showed us what didn't work. After fighting, for 300 years we became very good at not dying. Stone brought up another display showing the current human fleet. When we first encountered the Devourers, we had one ship and a crew of 5,000 people. Earth responded to our distress calls by sending everything they had. 17 supercarriers, each one carrying 50,000 crew members. The entire human deep space program was committed to this war. The numbers were staggering. Nearly 1 million humans had been fighting at the edge of the galaxy for 3 centuries, and no one in Coalition space had known about it. Where did Earth get the resources for such a massive fleet? Asked Senator Williams of the Colonial Assembly. They built them in secret, Stone replied, after we sent word about the Devourers. Earth's governments united for the first time in human history. Every nation, every corporation, every resource was focused on one goal: building a fleet strong enough to stop the threat we had found. Dr. Price added more technical details. The ships were built using experimental technology that pushed the limits of what was possible. Quantum computers that could think at the speed of light. Energy shields that could absorb the power of entire stars. Weapons that could destroy matter at the atomic level. Coalition Admiral Rex studied the technical specifications with growing amazement. These ships are more advanced than anything we have ever built. How did humans develop such technology so quickly? Desperation, Stone answered simply. When the survival of your entire species depends on solving a problem, you find ways to do things that seemed impossible before. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Hayes, the Defiance's communications officer, stepped forward. We should also mention that we didn't fight this war alone. We found other species out there beyond the edge of the galaxy. Refugees who had escaped from regions the Devourers had already consumed. The display showed images of alien beings that no one in the Coalition had ever seen before. Some looked like humans, others were completely different. But all of them had the same look in their eyes that the human crew had. The look of people who had seen too much. They taught us things about space and time that our scientists had never imagined, Hayes continued. In return, we taught them how to fight as a unified force. Together, we held the line. Stone's expression became more serious. But now that line is breaking. The Devourers have developed new abilities. They can corrupt our technology, turning our own ships against us. They can create copies of themselves that think and act like the original. Most dangerous of all, they have learned to predict our time manipulation tactics. He showed them recordings from recent battles. The human ships that had seemed invincible before were now struggling against Devourer vessels that moved just as fast and hit just as hard. 3 weeks ago, we lost the UHS Guardian, Stone said quietly. 50,000 crew members. One of our best ships. The Devourers didn't just destroy it, they absorbed it, learning everything about our technology and tactics. The Coalition representatives exchanged worried looks. If the humans who had been fighting this war for 3 centuries were losing, what hope did the rest of the galaxy have? How long do we have? Asked Prime Minister Chen. Commander Turner brought up a tactical display showing the current positions of both fleets. Our scout ships report massive Devourer formations moving toward Coalition space. Based on their current speed, the advance forces will arrive at your outer colonies in 4 days. 4 days? Admiral Vex stood up suddenly. That's not enough time to evacuate the border worlds, let alone prepare a defense. We're not planning to evacuate, Stone said firmly. We're planning to fight, but we'll need the full cooperation of every Coalition fleet if we're going to have any chance of winning. Dr. Price activated the final display, showing tactical plans that covered dozens of star systems. We've been developing a new strategy. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourers ship by ship, we're going to trap their entire fleet in a zone where time moves differently. If we can slow down their advance long enough, we might be able to find a permanent solution. The plan was incredibly complex, requiring precise coordination between hundreds of ships across multiple star systems. It would need every vessel the coalition could spare, working together with the human fleet in ways that had never been attempted before. "Will it work?" asked Admiral Keth. Stone looked around the room at the faces of the coalition's leaders. "I don't know," he admitted. "But it's our only chance. The alternative is watching the Devourers consume every world in the galaxy, one by one until there's nothing left but empty space." The room was quiet for a long moment as everyone considered the choice they faced. Finally, Prime Minister Chen spoke for all of them. "Tell us what you need, Admiral Stone. Humanity has been protecting us for 300 years without us even knowing it. The least we can do is help you finish the job." The first sign that everything was about to change came from the deep space monitoring stations. Technician Ray Parker was drinking his third cup of coffee when his sensors began detecting massive energy signatures appearing throughout the outer rim of Coalition space. At first he thought his equipment was broken. "This can't be right," he muttered, checking his readings again. "I'm showing 17 separate contacts, each one bigger than a space station." His supervisor, Chief Monica Davis, hurried over to look at his screen. Her eyes grew wide when she saw the numbers. "Send this to Coalition Command immediately, and Ray, double-check everything. These readings are impossible." But across the galaxy, other monitoring stations were reporting the same thing. Massive ships were appearing from nowhere, taking positions around key star systems. The ships all had the same design as the Defiance, and they all broadcast the same identification codes. United Human Ship Fleet vessels that had been lost for 3 centuries. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as his fleet took their positions. Each ship captain reported in through the quantum communication system, their voices carrying the weight of centuries of warfare. "UHS Vengeance in position at the Kepler system," reported Captain Nancy Blake. Her ship was one of the largest in the fleet, its hull scarred from countless battles but still deadly and beautiful. "UHS Relentless holding station at the Aurora Colonies," came the voice of Captain Tony Martinez. His ship specialized in long-range strikes, its weapons capable of hitting targets across multiple star systems. One by one, 17 supercarriers and their escort fleets reported their positions. The UHS Indomitable, the UHS Guardian's Revenge, the UHS Defiant Spirit, ships that had become legends during their long war against the Devourers. Coalition Fleet Admiral Vex watched the deployment from his command center and felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope mixed with fear. These human ships represented more firepower than the entire Coalition military possessed, but they also represented a war that most people couldn't even imagine. "Admiral Stone," Vex said over the communication link, "your fleet deployment is complete, but I have to ask, how many Devourers are we expecting to face?" Stone's voice was calm but serious. "Based on our scout reports, approximately 50,000 enemy vessels of various sizes. The advance force alone will outnumber our combined fleets 10-1. The Coalition Command Center fell silent. Those kinds of numbers meant that even with the human supercarriers, they would be badly outnumbered. Captain Lisa Park, now serving as liaison between the human and Coalition fleets, studied the tactical displays. "Admiral Stone, with respect, those odds seem impossible to overcome." "They would be impossible," Stone agreed, "if we were planning to fight a traditional battle. But we're not." Lieutenant Colonel Peter Hayes activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships prepare for Operation Time Wall. This is not a drill." Across the galaxy, both human and Coalition vessels began implementing a plan that pushed the boundaries of known science. The human ships started generating energy fields that bent space and time around them, while Coalition vessels provided support and coordination. Dr. Helen Price explained the strategy to the Coalition commanders. "We're not going to fight the Sidon Devourers directly. Instead, we're going to create a barrier in time itself. When their fleet arrives, they'll find themselves trapped in a region where time moves so slowly that they can't advance." The technical aspects were beyond most Coalition officers, but the basic idea was simple. Use time manipulation technology to create an impenetrable wall that the enemy couldn't cross. Commander Ryan Foster of the Coalition Defense Force watched the preparations with growing amazement. These humans have been fighting with technology that seems like magic to us. No wonder they survived for 3 centuries against impossible odds. But as the human fleet prepared their defenses, long-range IA scouts brought disturbing news. The Devourer advance force was larger than expected, and it was moving faster than predicted. Captain Julie Evans of the UHS Striker led a squadron of reconnaissance ships to the edge of Coalition space. What she found there made her blood run cold. "Admiral Stone, you need to see this." The main display on the Defiance showed images from Evans' scout mission. Instead of the disorganized swarm they had expected, the Devourer fleet was moving in perfect formation. Their ships had been modified with new technology that made them look even more alien and dangerous than before. "They've been studying us," realized Commander Alex Turner. "Every battle we fought, every tactic we used, they've been learning from it all." Stone studied the enemy formation with the eyes of someone who had been fighting this war for 3 centuries. "They're not just coming to attack, they're coming to end this war once and for all." The Coalition representatives gathered for an emergency meeting. The mood was grim as they realized the true scope of what they were facing. "Can your time barrier stop them?" asked Prime Minister Chen. Stone was quiet for a moment before answering. "Under normal circumstances, yes. But these aren't normal circumstances. The Devourers have adapted to our tactics. They might have found ways to counter our time manipulation. Technology." Admiral Keth raised a tentacle in concern. "Then what options do we have?" "We fight," Stone said simply. "We use every ship, every weapon, every trick we've learned in 3 centuries of war, and we hope it's enough." Captain Park looked at the deployment of ships spread across dozens of star systems. "Admiral, with all due respect, the Coalition fleet has never fought anything like this. Our crews have no experience with time manipulation, weapons, or enemies that can consume entire planets." Stone nodded. "Which is why we're not asking them to fight like us. We're asking them to fight like themselves, but as part of a coordinated strategy." He activated a new display showing how Coalition ships would support the human time manipulation network. "Your ships will provide power amplification and targeting data. You'll be our eyes and ears while we focus on maintaining the time barriers." Commander Foster studied the tactical plan. "So we become one giant fighting unit with the human fleet as the core and Coalition forces as support." "Exactly," Turner confirmed. "For this to work, every ship needs to function as part of a single organism. We've been practicing this kind of coordination for 3 centuries. Now we need to teach it to your crews in days." The next 72 hours were intense beyond description. Human officers worked alongside Coalition crews, teaching them how to interface with time manipulation technology. Coalition engineers studied human weapons systems, trying to understand devices that operated beyond their current scientific knowledge. Lieutenant Danny Walsh, now serving as a training coordinator, found himself explaining quantum temporal mechanics to a group of Zephyrian navigators. "Don't think of time as a straight line," he told them. "Think of it as a river that you can dam, redirect, or speed up." Meanwhile, human crews were learning to work with Coalition technology that they hadn't seen in 3 centuries. The galaxy had continued to advance while they were away, and some Coalition innovations were actually superior to human equivalents. Captain Blake of the Vengeance worked with Coalition Admiral Rex to coordinate fleet movements. "Your ships are more maneuverable than ours," she admitted. "We've been built for long-range warfare. Close quarters fighting isn't our strength anymore." "Then we'll handle the close work," Rex replied. "Your supercarriers can provide support and heavy firepower, while our ships engage at shorter range." As the preparations continued, something unexpected began to happen. The 2 fleets weren't just learning to work together, they were becoming friends. Human and Coalition crew members shared stories, compared technology, and discovered that despite their different backgrounds, they had more in common than anyone had expected. Technician Ray Parker found himself working alongside Chief Engineer Betty Collins from the Defiance. "You know," he said as they calibrated a quantum resonance array, "3 days ago I didn't even know humans had a secret fleet. Now I can't imagine fighting this battle without you." Collins smiled. "That's the thing about humans, Ray. We don't like to brag about what we're doing. We just do what needs to be done. But even as the two fleets prepared for battle, the scouts brought increasingly dire reports. The Devourer advance force had grown to nearly 100,000 ships, and more were coming behind them. Worse, the enemy was using technology that no one had seen before. They're adapting faster than we thought possible, reported Captain Evans during her final scout mission. Some of their ships are generating their own time distortion fields. They might be able to punch through our barriers. Admiral Stone gathered his senior staff for one final planning session. The enemy is stronger than we expected, but we have something they don't understand. What's that? Asked Dr. Price. Stone looked around at the mixed group of human and coalition, officers working together in his briefing room. We have allies. The Devourers have always fought alone, consuming everything they encounter. They don't understand cooperation or sacrifice for others. Commander Turner nodded. They think strength comes from consuming your enemies. We know it comes from protecting your friends. The fleet was as ready as it could be. The first Devourer ships appeared at the edge of Coalition space like nightmares made real. Their dark hulls twisted through space in ways that hurt to watch, and their very presence seemed to make the stars dim around them. Captain Elena Rodriguez, now commanding a joint task force, watched through her view screen as the enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace. Count them, she ordered her crew. Lieutenant Jake Morrison worked frantically at his sensors. Over 200,000 contacts, Captain, and more are still arriving. The numbers were worse than anyone had feared. The Devourer fleet stretched across space like a black tide, covering an area larger than most solar systems. Their ships ranged from small fighters the size of coalition cruisers to massive world eaters that dwarfed even the human supercarriers. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the enemy deployment with the calm eyes of someone who had seen this sight many times before. All ships, this is Admiral Stone. Execute Operation Time Wall on my mark. Across dozens of star systems, human and coalition vessels began, working together in perfect coordination. The human supercarriers generated massive energy fields that bent space and time itself, while coalition ships provided targeting data and power amplification. The effect was visible even from thousands of miles away. Space itself began to shimmer and distort, creating a barrier that stretched from one end of the galaxy's rim to the other. When the Devourer fleet hit the time wall, their advance suddenly slowed to a crawl. It's working, reported Dr. Helen Price from her science station. Enemy vessels are trapped in a temporal distortion field. Their time rate has been reduced to 1% of normal. For a moment, it seemed like the impossible plan might actually succeed. The Devourer fleet was frozen in space, unable to advance, but also unable to retreat. Coalition defenders cheered as they watched the enemy become sitting targets, but their celebration was short-lived. Admiral, called Commander Alex Turner urgently, I'm detecting new energy signatures from the enemy fleet. They're adapting to our time distortion. On the main screen, some of the Devourer ships began to glow with strange energy patterns. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, they started breaking through the time barrier. Stone's expression became grim. They've learned to generate their own temporal fields. Sound general quarters. All ships prepare for battle. What followed was unlike any battle in recorded history. The Devourers attacked not just with weapons, but with reality itself. They twisted space to make distances meaningless, turned time into a weapon, and created zones where the laws of physics simply stopped working. Captain Nancy Blake of the UHS Vengeance found herself fighting enemies that existed in multiple time streams simultaneously. These things are shooting at us from the past and future at the same time, she reported. How do we fight something like that? We adapt, Stone replied calmly. All human vessels, activate quantum combat protocols. Coalition ships, maintain, formation and provide covering fire. The human fleet responded with tactics learned from 3 centuries of warfare against impossible odds. Ships that had seemed to be destroyed suddenly reappeared, their damage undone by reversing time around them. Weapons fired through dimensional rifts, striking at enemies across vast distances. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Hayes coordinated the quantum communication network that allowed the fleet to act as a single unit. Vengeance. Redirect fire to coordinates. 7-7 Alpha. Relentless, prepare for temporal jump to grid section 4. All coalition vessels concentrate firepower on the large organic ships. The battle raged across multiple dimensions and time streams. Coalition Admiral Rex found his traditional understanding of warfare completely useless. How do we target enemies that keep changing their position in time? Don't target where they are, advised Captain Julie Evans of the UHS Striker. Target where they're going to be. The quantum computers can predict their temporal movements. As the fight continued, something remarkable began to happen. The coalition crews, who had never experienced this kind of combat before, started to adapt and improvise. They couldn't manipulate time like the humans could, but they found other ways to contribute. Technician Ray Parker discovered that coalition sensor arrays could detect devourer temporal distortions better than human equipment. Our sensors aren't designed for time manipulation, he explained to Chief Engineer Betty Collins, so they can see through their time tricks. Brilliant, Collins replied. Feed that sensor data to our targeting computers. We can use it to predict their movements. The combined fleet fought with desperate creativity. Human ships provided the heavy firepower and temporal manipulation, while coalition vessels served as scouts, coordinators, and support units. Together, they began to push back against the devourer advance. But the enemy had learned from 3 centuries of fighting humans. They had studied every tactic, analyzed every weakness, and prepared counters for every strategy. When the human ships tried to slow down time around enemy vessels, the devourers responded by speeding up their own time fields. When coalition ships tried to outmaneuver them, the enemy predicted their movements and struck first. We're losing ships faster than we can replace them, reported Commander Ryan Foster. The devourers are learning our tactics in real time. Admiral, Stone made a decision that would define the entire war. All ships prepare for Protocol Omega. We're going to end this fight right now. Protocol Omega was humanity's ultimate weapon, developed during the darkest days of the war against the devourers. It required every human ship to work together, in perfect synchronization, creating a massive temporal distortion that could affect an entire star system. Admiral, Dr. Price warned, Protocol Omega will require every bit of power our ships have. If it fails, we won't have enough energy left to retreat. Then we better make sure it doesn't fail, Stone replied. The 17 human supercarriers began generating energy fields beyond anything they had attempted before. Space around them started to distort and bend, creating ripples that spread outward like waves in an ocean. The coalition fleet provided targeting data and protected the human ships while they charged their weapons. Captain, Lisa Park watched from her command ship as reality itself began to change around the human fleet. I can see the Defiance, but it looks like it's in 3 different places at once. That's because it is, explained Lieutenant Danny Walsh. The human ships are existing in multiple time streams simultaneously. When they fire, the attack will hit the enemy in the past, present, and future all at the same time. The devourers seemed to sense what was coming. Their entire fleet turned toward the human supercarriers, firing everything they had in a desperate attempt to stop Protocol Omega from activating. Coalition ships threw themselves between the enemy and the human fleet, absorbing massive damage to protect their allies. Admiral Rex's flagship was destroyed, but not before he managed to transmit his final order: all coalition vessels protect the humans at all costs. Then Protocol Omega activated. Reality exploded outward from the human fleet in a wave of distorted space and time. Devourer ships caught in the effect simply ceased to exist, erased from all possible timelines simultaneously. The wave continued, expanding, wiping out hundreds of thousands of enemy vessels in seconds. When the light faded, the Devourer fleet was gone. Not destroyed, not scattered, simply gone, as if they had never existed at all. The surviving coalition and human ships floated in space, their crews stunned by what they had witnessed. For the first time in 3 centuries, the galaxy was free from the Devourer threat. Admiral Stone's voice came over the communication system, tired but victorious. All ships stand down from combat alert. The enemy has been eliminated. Captain, Rodriguez looked at her tactical display, which showed empty space where moments before there had been the largest fleet in galactic history. Admiral Stone, what exactly did you just do? We erased them from time itself, Stone replied. Not just the ships that were here, but every devourer that has ever existed. The quantum temporal field propagated backward through time, undoing their entire species. The implications were staggering. By eliminating the devourers from all timelines, the human fleet had not only ended the current threat, but prevented the war from ever happening in the first place. Wait, said Dr. Price, checking her instruments. If the devourers never existed, then we never fought them. But if we never fought them, how do we remember the war? Because we were inside the temporal field when it activated, Stone explained. We exist outside normal time now. We remember the timeline that was erased. Over the following days, as the fleet returned to Coalition space, the true scope of what had happened became clear. The human ships that had been fighting for 3 centuries were the only proof that the war had ever occurred. To everyone else in the galaxy, the devourers were just a nightmare that had never been real. But the effects of the war remained. The human fleet had technology far beyond anything the Coalition possessed. They had learned secrets of space and time that could revolutionize galactic civilization. Most importantly, they had proven that when faced with extinction, different species could work together to achieve the impossible. Admiral Stone addressed the Coalition Council one final time.